go to an overflow space, they can go out here and we'll direct them.
Okay.
And then I don't know if you just want to like have everybody wave to the overflow.
Okay. I'll mention that. All right. Good morning, everyone. I guess it's mid-morning at this point. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am pleased to see such a large crowd today. Hopefully these sessions will continue to grow as time passes. As you well know, this session will occur on a monthly basis, so we hope to see you back next month. Just to get started, my name is Richard Covington. For those that I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, I have spent the past 8 years working in Medical Center Human Resources, and just recently had the honor to come over and work on the UFirst project as the talent management team lead. So a couple of housekeeping notes before we jump into the agenda for today. First things first, the restrooms, if you haven't already found them, are to my left, many of you for your right, just down at the end of the hall there. We are simulcasting today's session, so please try to keep the crowd noise to a minimum and make sure for our presenters that you speak into the mic. Hold it 6 inches from your face, as I was told. And just make sure that we're being deliberate as we call attention to slides so that those working from their desk can follow along. Additionally, I'll note that there is an overflow room, so if you guys would be more comfortable in another session, or if you see people come in, just direct them to the folks over there standing on the side of the room, and they'll get them into the overflow section. Alrighty, so to dive in, we have an action-packed agenda today. You'll find that a lot of this is very interactive, so it'll give you an opportunity to engage with us and ask your questions. But we're going to start by reviewing our objectives, just to make sure we're all on the same page and we know what the purpose and the intent of today's meeting is. Secondly, we're going to spend some time talking about the Future State HR Competency Framework, which will be used throughout the transition and will also carry over into the Future State Talent Management Model as we look at things like performance management, our career pathing, and our competency framework. We're going to take some time focusing in on one of those competencies in particular, the collaboration competency, and just engage you guys in a dialogue about what that means to you and the key elements that we want to see carried over into the future state. We'll then jump right into our future state HR delivery model using some use case scenarios. You can see 3 examples there that hopefully everyone in this room can relate to. But we'll describe in great detail about what the future state is going to look like and give you an opportunity to ask some questions or point out some things that resonate with you specifically. And then we'll close by sharing next steps, both for the project and the things that we expect of you as the HR community. And then lastly, we'll spend about an hour doing a community fair, giving you the opportunity to go around from booth to booth and ask questions and really engage us with your thoughts and ideas. So any questions or comments before we dive in? Alrighty, so our objectives for today. I mentioned we're going to spend some time talking about the HR competency framework. We'll tell you our journey of how we got to this point today and point out some of the key elements that we hope to see carried over into the future state. We'll also describe how the HR model will work. Again, spending some time walking through those use case scenarios and really getting into the specifics of the work. As mentioned, we'll discuss the next steps for the community circle, what we expect from you and what we plan to deliver as a project. And then lastly, as I said, is that interaction section, just an opportunity to really engage in dialogue and learn the specifics of the model. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Barbara Kessler, and she's going to walk us through the HR competency.
I'm not going to walk very gingerly, for those of you that notice. So hopefully I get this boot off next Thursday. Anyways, I'll do exactly what Richard just did for you. I'm Barbara Kessler, and I've been with the university for 13 years, still with the School of Continuing Professional Studies, but about 5 years ago became their HR director, and now I split my time kind of 80-20 as the lead for talent readiness team, and you'll learn more about what that means, and also with the school in the HR team. So I appreciate being here and having the opportunity to share with you one of the early deliverables or work products out of the talent readiness team. So before, I'm going to rephrase what we have up here on the slide, but this hopefully for those people that aren't physically sitting in here can follow along and understand really I'm restating what is up here on the slide. So for those of you that know and love and have worked closely with Michael Latsko over the years, if you spend a lot of time around him, you start to channel some of his talents. I'm not sharing a limerick, but I am sharing a play on the word, or our tag name of You First. So just, if you want to close your eyes while you're thinking about this, feel free. So the competency framework provides for us unity in our HR community by defining baseline expectations that focus on our foundational and interpersonal roles. I wrote down inspirational, then I realized that's not the right word. And supports our reason and purpose for our work while serving our customers and transitioning to the future state of HR. So, think about what I just said, and really this competency framework is a first for our HR community because we do not have one that unifies our community and identifies or establishes certain baseline expectations of how we treat each other, how we serve our customers, and how we move forward in supporting the university's mission. So what we've done is we've established or identified 8 competencies. And we looked at all the information that currently exists at the university with respect to competencies, so academic side, physicians group, and the medical center. We looked at some other consulting or best practices information on competency. So this was not done in isolation of, what does Barbara Kessler think each one of us should be able to do. So I want to just put that out on the table. So based on all that information, we identified 8 competencies, and we've divided up into 2 groups, actually 4 groups. But the first group is competencies that we expect all of us to be able to exhibit at some level or the other. We are going to establish kind of a rubric for what does mastery proficiency look like versus basic. So we'll establish that as well and share that with you as we move forward. But quite honestly, we have the professional, so there are sources, sorry, audience. And then we also have, for those that are a manager or a leader within the HR community. Okay? So those groups of roles also are divided into what's foundational to every single one of us, and also what's on the interpersonal side. I think the way some of our current, how we typically think of competencies, it usually says ensures accountability or ensures integrity. It has a verb and what follows. And what we decided to do was to really create these as nouns, and so we can own the role. We can own the behavior, own the experience or the skills that are associated with that. So that's how I'd like for you to look at these. They are noun-based. And if you look at some information that Kelly just recently shared with me at the University of Michigan, they're going to noun-based as well, which that was good, validation right there. So if you think about it, subject matter expertise, what does this mean in terms of how much do you know about the HR work, whether it's what you specifically know how to do right now or what you aspire to do in the future? How much do you know? What else do you need to learn, et cetera? So there are more definitions in the other slides. Customer-focused practitioner, if we didn't put, we are here to serve our customer. If we didn't put them or include them in one of the roles that we need to play, then we aren't doing our job. So that particular role also enforces or influences and strengthens our ability and our sense of purpose for serving the university. As far as on the interpersonal side, the ability to communicate and collaborate. I think sometimes we just isolate that by our ability to communicate, and we forget what collaboration means in terms of working with each other, working to support each other, generating ideas, solving problems, all again with the customer in mind. From the leadership perspective, we're individuals who can manage and handle change, but do this with more of a creative, innovative, leadership perspective versus the doom and gloom of some people associate with change agent. So we decided to stay away from that, even though that was on the list early. And so you'll see more about what we mean from an innovation. But it really helps us kind of move from point A to point B and then point C as the university evolves, as the HR community and profession evolves. So what does that mean? Business manager, just like it implies in terms of, if you're leading or managing a unit, there's some certain standards or business practices that we expect everybody in those roles to be able to demonstrate. Brenda reminded us earlier that you also make sure that it's not in the context of within the HR or your unit, but in the greater university and then higher education as a whole. So there is some connection there. Then the last two is role model, our role model. And I think we expect this of people, but we don't necessarily call it out. So this gives us the opportunity to really define what we mean by serving as a role model. And the last, obviously, is community builder. We initially had the word team, but we decided the team is confining or restricting. So we really, our role is, our community is multiple, whether it's our direct reports, the HR community, University of Virginia, your school or department, or the HR community as beyond UVA. So on these other slides really dive deep into a little more. It gives you the definition. So we will definitely share this information and have it available so you can see. And then like Richard said, next month we'll share more about what we're doing with this. What's the what? But this will inform things like position descriptions for future state, how we evaluate or manage our performance, how we interview people, so it'll inform some behavioral interview questions. And then also, how do I get trained or make sure that I have the skills? So we'll share more of that in the next couple of months about how we're going to make sure that each one of us have the skills and abilities necessary in order to really be successful in the future state. Okay. So, next up, we're going to talk about what the word collaborator means. Okay? So, in the slide, and what I'll do is I'll move back to that slide once I explain this. And Richard, did you want to describe this activity, or are you okay with me? Okay. Okay. So, what we'd like for you to do is just where you're sitting, turn to your neighbors and about 2 to 4 people. Ideally, we'd like for you to sit with people that you don't know, but at the sake of time, I don't know if we have time to do that, but if you want to do that, feel free and get up and move around. You can stand because we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. But what we'd like for you to do, and again, I'll click back to collaborator definition, is suggest ways in which you can work or collaborate better with one another. All right, so then on the other thing too is on your seat, there happens to be a passport. Is that the right word for it? Okay. On one side, there is a place to write down ideas and notes. So go ahead and take notes there so we can at least collect this information that'll inform our work going forward. And so we'll give you 5 minutes, Richard just said. Okay? So let's break up into groups and start talking.
Sorry, I was going to. Two more minutes, guys. 2 more minutes. Okay, just take about half a minute to wrap up your conversations, and then we'll regroup as a team. Okay, can we go ahead and come back together as a group? Alrighty, thank you for engaging in that activity. It was clear that there was a lot of lively discussion, so thank you for that. So in regards to the collaborator competency, we'd like to hear from maybe 2 or 3 people, some of the things you talked about in your teams. Anyone willing to share? Yes, in the middle there.
Number one thing, communication. A lot of departments don't communicate things they need to communicate. It's kind of like I will keep it a secret from you. And I really like the way you formatted it with this, Chris, where it feels like to me that you're being upfront with everything and you're not hiding things. And that's what we need.
Absolutely. The comment from the audience was communication is key. In our current state, it sounded like, there's a lot of siloed areas. People aren't talking amongst the HR community. And the individual referenced the fact that the U-First team thus far has been very transparent and communicative in their efforts, so they want to see that continue. Someone else? Yes, in the back there.
Hold on.
I have a mic coming.
Okay, so one step further with the communication is not only communicating, but making sure that you're providing timely and accurate information. So that you can communicate all day long, but if it's not up-to-date information, getting to the right places, so.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Maybe let's hear from one more individual. Something different than communication. Yes, Shelley.
It's for the.
So, we were all just sort of saying that we're feeling a little bit, like not sure of what's going on right now anyway, just sitting down in the room and getting started. So one of the things we talked about is giving grace to the people that are around you and trusting in that things are going to come together and that we are going to build a good community. And then also giving yourself permission to be uncomfortable during all this time, to not having the answers right away and being ready to just sit back and say, okay, the answers will come and I will be part of contributing to those answers.
Excellent comments. I really appreciate that. Thank you. These truly are unprecedented times, and the more we can pull our resources and collaborate with one another, the better off we're going to be as a result of that. So thank you guys for sharing. For the sake of time, we're going to continue moving on. And since collaboration is the key here, I'm going to transition over to Kelly, and she's going to walk through the HR service delivery model, which is chocked full of collaboration, as you'll see.
Good morning. Good, you are awake. How many people stayed up and watched the World Series last night? Yeah, a lot of people. Yeah, I have to say my team won. So you've probably seen this in other meetings. In fact, at this meeting, I believe I walked through it, although the graphics of it have changed just a little bit, but it is basically the same thing. But we have a larger group here today, and we're human beings, and so it takes us a while to assimilate things, and so it's good to go over it again. Before I do that, though, I want to introduce Jason Handy, who is new to the team, to the You First team. So because Sean cannot be everything to everybody, Jason is a project manager that has come on the team. He has Workday experience. He has Salesforce experience, which is one of the tools that we're using for the service center in some areas. So he has some and great project management experience. So he's a great add to the team, and I think will be a great help to Sean going forward. I also wanted to touch briefly on communications. We just had the S3 meeting with some of the leadership prior to this, and they brought up communication as well, okay? And it's just, when you're on a project, you feel like you're saying the same thing over and over and over, but when you get to that point, it means people are just starting to hear you, and so you have to kind of remind yourself. One of the things that I will put a plug in for Kathleen is that she constantly updates the FAQs on the You First website, so that's a good place to go if you're looking for the latest information. And one of the suggestions this morning that we're going to implement is, as we send out emails, that we will kind of put that link at the bottom of the emails so that it's just easy to click on there and you're not thinking, okay, how did I get to that You First website again? So we'll try to do more of that. The other ask was for very explicit direction in terms of who is supposed to be communicating what. So if I'm an HR leader in a school and I go to a meeting, are you expecting me to cascade that information through my organization, or is somebody from You First going to communicate that? And so we're going to get more explicit about that. So good call on communications. I think we do know that we need to do that. So back up, I'm going to start in the top left, and I believe part of the activity that we have at the end of this session allows you to talk to people and dive deeper into some of these so that you'll be able to, if I kind of gloss over something, you'll be able to ask specific questions about it. So I think I may have said last time, the talent area is our future, I think. And the reason is because our workforce is becoming increasingly diverse. Baby boomers who had some homogenous characteristics, if you will, are retiring from the workforce. We're going to have lots of different generational, gender, race. We've just got more diversity than we've ever had before. And so talent is key. The other thing is we're going to see a dip in the talent supply, again, because of baby boomers retiring, okay? And we've still got a few years. Well, okay, let's see. I'm on the end of that baby boomer group, and I'm not retiring yet, so we've got a few years to go for that yet. And so the ability to create pipelines, to identify talent, to be a destination where people want to work, because UVA is such a great and developmental and ability to have opportunity place to work that people want to be here. So that's the environment, and that's why I say, while everything's critical, I think talent is the future for us, and so that's a very critical part. Under that, all the coordination of recruitment and hiring, the learning and development, how do we invest in our people for the future? Because we're going to also have to grow a lot of our own. And if you're one of the younger folks in the workforce, that's awesome for you, because it says that UVA, like other employers, must invest in its people and help them grow, because again, there's going to be a workforce shortage in some respects. Employee relations is key. So employee relations is not only helping to be proactive and manage things on the front end, but unfortunately they also have to manage things when they don't go well on the other end. And so they're a great barometer for how are we managing our talent, because oftentimes they're involved when it doesn't go well, and can help inform the rest of that group. And then a new area that's been added in the last, I don't know, 4 to 6 weeks probably is flexibility. So we already have a temporary hiring service, and I know lots of people in this room may have come through there or used that service, but we need to expand that, okay? So other kind of temporary, if you will, jobs that we have that are, from a volume perspective, difficult to manage are student employees, adjunct faculty. There are lots of other shorter term appointments that we don't really think of in that same vein. And so there's opportunity there for us to share learnings and to have a structure where we do that very, very well, okay, because it again feeds our organization. Also in terms of flexibility, I think in order to manage the needs of the workforce, we may have to have jobs that we piece together, okay? So there may be job sharing and those kinds of things. We are going to have to get more flexible in order to meet the needs of our workforce. So that's kind of an exciting, kind of leading edge type thing that I think we could develop and be a model for others. Going down to the service area, so to me, this is the foundational area. This is where we touch people every day. And if we do not do this well, it paints the entire rest of the HR organization with that brush. Okay, so this is where people are calling with questions. They're having trouble getting on a website. They can't complete a form. They need to change health insurance. They need to add a baby. They need to do whatever it is. So this is helping our workforce manage work-life balance, in my mind. This is where we cut through the bureaucracy and we help people get things done in a timely and easy manner. We're going to have, through the implementation of Workday as our software, we're going to have a much better toolkit to do that in the future. But we've got to get from here to there, okay? That's still a couple years down the road. And so you're going to see us begin to build this in current state and work across the organization to build this in current state, even though it's going to be a little bit clunky and it's going to still be made, some manual processes and those kinds of things because we don't have the software for a while. But we'll learn a lot while we're doing that. And that will be what I call the pressure valve. So as positions are changing and those kinds of things, if we build this right, we should be able to take on and help relieve some of the transactional pressure, hopefully, across the organization. And so this is a really key infrastructural piece here. The business partners are the intersection between what we may deliver in a coordinated and combined and aligned fashion and how we meet the customer's needs, okay? So this should be the individual that no matter who I am in a school or a department or whatever, I know the person to go to, okay? And that person, if they can't answer, can get me the resources I need. Now, one of the concerns I'm hearing about this as I go across the organization is, will they just be a broker for services, okay? In which case it feels like to me as a customer that you're just adding another layer. This individual will be an HR professional that probably 75% of what is needed they can deliver or seamlessly turnkey get to their customer, but they'll have resources to back them up where they need deeper expertise. So, for example, FLSA changes, okay? The business partner won't have to do the analysis, although they'll be involved in how it's going to impact their customer and their school or unit. But they won't have to do all that because you'll have a group that can do that, that analysis and help with that delivery. And then you go down to the impact and decision making. This is sometimes the behind the curtain engine that is going to cause many of these things to be successful. So one of the things we have trouble with now is we don't have access to data so we can really be proactive in advising our customers as to what are the needs of their workforce, what are the risks coming up, where is opportunity for us to develop and expand or get talent. We don't have the information we need to do that. And so part of this transition and part of what's being built here, and again, some of these pieces will come up early even before we're on the software because we'll begin building some of that infrastructure for what's going to happen in the future. So again, many people won't even see this engine that's running behind here, but it will make all of the rest of this so much more productive and powerful and informed in terms of what we're going to do in the future. So I'm going to kind of stop there. Do we have time for questions or do we need to move on? Questions? Okay, while you're thinking of a question then. One of the things that I just wanted to preview for you is that we do understand that you need more information, and part of the lull in information is the teams are newly formed and are developing that material just as quickly as they can, okay? But the handoff was like the end of June, and so it takes a while. We're still getting the teams built, and so even though they're working like crazy, they have a morning meeting where they move things from to-do, in process, and done, and it's just phenomenal to watch those little sticky notes move across the wall. So they are working very hard and very fast. But we understand that you need more information, and some of that baseline information is, I think, what does the structure look like when we get through the implementation of Workday and we move from where we are today to what we're kind of calling future state, although it'll only be future state in that moment until we move to the next thing, right? So it is the 2-year view out, and so we understand you need that. We understand that you need to know what are the positions in that new structure, and what are the job duties and the competencies and all of those things that make that up. And so I will just tell you that hopefully soon you'll be getting a kind of save the date. So we are hoping to have an HR event for the HR community in December, first couple of weeks of December, that because we think we'll have a lot of that material ready where we can really do a deep dive with you into that information and share a lot of that information. And then there'll be more opportunities coming out. We are committed to investing in helping us get from, in you, if you will, to helping all of us get from where we are today to where we need to be in the future. And so that is coming, and I just want to acknowledge that we get it, and we're kind of running as fast as we can, so it's coming. Now, questions. Now that you've had all this time to think. Yes, ma'am. Oh, I didn't realize I had it. Huh.
Thank you. So this is going to be a question that may upset some people, but I think it's a very important question to ask. I have been told by someone who heard it from an HR person that when the workday comes in and when the Oracle goes out, about July 2018, that we're all going to have to reapply for our jobs, and I want to know if that's true.
So there will be a talent, I think what we're calling it is a talent matching process. There are still discussions going on exactly how that's going to happen. The challenge that we face is that the jobs that you're going to see coming in the future are different from the jobs today, okay? So I get it never feels good to have to reapply for something that you think you're doing, okay? I mean, I'll just put that out there. It doesn't. On the other hand, what's trying to be balanced is the fact that to give everyone equal opportunity and not to assume that because you're doing this role, you don't have the capabilities to do another role, okay? So that's the challenge. I don't know, and we're certainly open to input. We have not come up with a better way than some type of talent matching, or to your point, selection process, so that we don't make assumptions about your capability, that we fully help you understand what opportunity is, and then you have an option to go after as many of those opportunities as you are interested in. But there has to be a process in order to do that, and so that's the challenge. I'm not sure we've come up with a fair, if you will, giving everybody the same opportunity than to go through some kind of selection process, but we fully understand that doesn't feel really good, and so those are some of the discussions that we hope to have over these next few months.
Yes, it seems like to me we're talking about different job duties and rearranging jobs, people's jobs and so forth, so it does sound like to me that there's going to be some kind of a process to be selected into your current job or to selected into another job. So that sounds like you're saying, yes, we will have to have some kind of adjustment to our jobs.
I think we will. So our jobs won't look the same. For example, a process that takes 45 minutes now may be automated or take 5 minutes in the future state. Also, we know that we have a gap between what our customers say they need from HR and what we're delivering from HR. So those two things alone will change the types of jobs that we have in 2 years from now versus what we have today.
Right. I guess being a 35-year employee of this university, I feel like it's an opportunity for our departments, our directors, whoever, to get rid of people that, if they want to get rid of people, saying that you don't, you're not qualified for your job anymore because we're adding this or we're changing that. Do you see that?
So I think that's upon us, and I'll take that as a leader to manage the process. I know that Pat Hogan, who I report to, has said that there is a place for everyone here, okay? Now, whether that means your job will look the same today as it does tomorrow, and I will tell you honestly, there will be some people who say, you know, okay, here's my job today, here's my job tomorrow, and I'm going to retire because I just really don't want to learn a new job. I mean, I've seen that happen. So, you know, you could interpret that to say, well, we push that person out. You know what I mean? And
Yes,
so,
ma'am.
you know, so there's a balance there, and I fully understand that. I think we have to continue that discussion. I think I hold myself accountable as a leader that those types of things don't occur, that it's a fair and equitable and open process, but that doesn't mean that everyone will interpret it the same way. And so we just have to keep that dialogue open.
Yes, I agree totally. And I'm definitely on that train if it happens. I think this lady over here said that there's a lot of unknown questions in my mind of how things are going to work. I'm going to stick it out as long as I can. If I'm not happy with what the change is going to be, I am going to look into retirement. My other question, and I'll let somebody else talk, I'm a classified employee right now. So do you see this transition of making jobs different and this and that and the other, a way to get classified people out of the state system and that you're pushing us to the university staff?
No. So, but what I will tell you, again, interpretation's everything, is that I believe that some of the actions that have been the result of having classified and non-classified staff create a division or a feeling of separateness between people, and we are all a part of UVA. And so I will tell you that one of my challenges in the project is to say, how can we minimize the differences between, so what are the real differences? And I've had lots of conversations with people about leave and compensation and different things. So my goal, to be quite honest, is not, I don't care about classified or non-classified. What I care about is having a workforce who feels like they're treated fairly, equitably, and that the university cares about them. And so in that aspect, we're going to do everything we can as we look at processes to minimize the differences. But there's no mandate.
That's what I'm most interested in, so if you all will be honest about that and let us know that that's going to be the case, that's what the most thing I'm interested in. I don't want to be a university staff employee. I want to go out in retirement in the state. There are differences in compensation and so forth, and I don't want to I want to stay state. And my friend has one other question.
Oh, well, you ask about most of them. But as a classified staff person nearing the age of retirement, do you think there'll be another buyout to let those of us who want to get out before all this starts?
Not a buyout, an incentive.
Oh, an incentive, sorry.
So this is where I'm going to have to claim to be the new person, but I don't think there's anybody in the room who could probably answer that question. So this is tomorrow I finished week 9. So honestly, I can't answer that question. I can tell you that I have not been involved, nor has the team been involved in any discussions around that to date, okay? So it's not something that is on the agenda for discussion. That doesn't mean it won't come on the agenda for discussion at some point. You never know those things. The only thing I can promise you is that we'll just keep you informed as things go, but it is not a part of the project plan, if you will, as an identified solution.
Can you just clarify again that there will be enough spots for everybody?
So here's the communication thing. So if you're asking me, will there be enough HR spots for everybody? The answer is probably there will not be as many HR positions in future state as there are today, okay? Because the new software will do many of the tasks that we need people to do today, okay? So I'm just going to be real honest about that. However, I will also say that there are administrative type processing duties that will either be taken on by the system or that school or unit may decide are critical to their business processes. They may not be an HR position. There may be some other kind of position. So to be very clear, will there be as many HR positions in future state as there are today? There will not be, and they will be different. But what Pat Hogan has said is we will help place everyone in the university in a position, okay? And so that's the transition, but part of that is we have to manage that through turnover, okay? And so there will be people who retire or move to another job or whatever. We are going to be, over the next 2 years, looking at every one of those positions and trying to be very thoughtful about what we fill so that we don't have the exact scenario that you're expressing concern about. Yes, ma'am. Yes, we are. We just had, in fact, that's where you have to catch yourself, okay? So some people moved to the team. We had some areas who posted, trying to be proactive, posted, and then they realized, oh gosh, we're all posting these positions. We need to get together. So just in the last 2 weeks, when people have been going to the teams in HR, to you first, some of the leaders have just organically gotten together. And at the leadership meeting just prior to this, we agreed that we're going to kind of formalize that process so that we can have a little more organized discussion around it, and we'll have representatives kind of from each organization on a team who will have discussions about that before we post and fill HR positions. Okay. Mm-hmm. I appreciate that.
I know you guys have tons of questions. We simply have to move on for the sake of time, but I just want to remind you that we have a full interactive session after this, a full hour where you can roam throughout the room and ask any questions that you would like. Yes, and also to the You First email. Thank you for that, Mark.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Duff. Hello. I'm the talent acquisition lead. I was the director of the executive search group. I've got a confession to make. I grew up a Cubs fan my whole life. I fell asleep at 10 last night. I had to hear it from Brian Gary this morning, the play-by-play. So what we'd like to do here, and just to follow up on Kelly, talent. It's so exciting that we're talking about this. This is the major driver as we move forward. So as you look at the boxes and buckets up here, I want to walk through what's it look like. Some of these are the same. We do this now. Some are new. So if you look at the HR business partner, say there's a need to fill. You need a position. What do? You go talk to your HR business partner. You strategize. You talk about, is it internal, external? Is it a faculty position? Do you involve the provost? And those are those conversations that happen there. Say you want to go external. This is new. This is the COE. This is where we provide the hiring manager, the HR business partner, the best possible candidates possible through strategy, through pipelining, through managing that search process. We've all been there. We know what that's like. Through engaging the candidates, creating that candidate experience. So we're going from that post and pray to post and PREY. This is where we go after talent. And from the service perspective, this is kind of the backdoor magic. This is what happens here. That's the posting, kind of the internal things that'll happen there. And then providing the tools to the HR business partner and the hiring manager that's what the HR impact piece does. So the bottom line here is we want to empower the hiring manager and the HR business partner to make the right decision, to have a hard choice, to have a really good pool of candidates, and also have a positive, consistent candidate experience across the university. So now I'm going to turn it over to, I think, Richard.
Thanks, Jeremy. So our second scenario here is around the need to manage or develop talent within your team. So I want to start with the orange box in the middle, and that is the role of the supervisor or the HR manager. And the reason I'm starting there is because that's the piece that is not changing. we're going to still look to you as leaders within the organization to have those difficult conversations, to document what you talked about, when you talked about, and the specifics of your dialogue. And also, most importantly, to recognize and reward your high performers. That is not changing. That will still always be the role of the HR manager. And I think many of you will agree, based on the literature, based on the research, that the manager plays the biggest role in one's development. So again, that is not changing. To help with that, from a talent perspective, Jeremy alluded to the COEs, the communities of expertise. So talent management is going to assist in that by providing training on how to give and receive feedback, how to coach for better performance. The employee relations COE is going to provide that expert guidance on how to handle these complex ER cases, how to navigate those muddy waters sometimes of the grievance process. We're also going to help you with recognition strategies. How can you really develop your team and incentivize them in a way that's meaningful to them? Moving over to the right quadrant, the BP perspective, the B business partner is your boots on the ground. That person is going to provide the real-time, in-the-moment feedback, perhaps following one of those difficult conversations, to coach leadership on what they could do to improve and to be more effective with their teams. Excuse me. They're also going to coordinate the right expertise at the right time. So they have intimate knowledge of the HR delivery model and can plug into the appropriate areas as needed. So you're no longer going to have to run that interference. The business partner is going to take care of that for you. Moving down to the bottom left quadrant, from a service perspective, Kelly talked about that being the analytical and the transactional support, and in many instances, the work that's occurring at the unit level today. So no longer will you have to input all those arduous transactions. The service center, the solution center is going to take care of that for you. They're also going to be that first line of defense when employees, leaders, or anyone within the organization calls with a question or an inquiry. They're going to give them the right advice at the right time or direct them to the appropriate party to resolve that issue. And then lastly, moving over to the bottom right quadrant, the impact and decision support, that is the analytics that we do not have today. So that's going to look at turnover metrics and any other performance indicators that would be beneficial from an operational standpoint. They're also going to handle aspects of compensation. So looking at how we calibrate pay for our higher performers and manage those performance management programs effectively. So I'll pause for a minute and see if you have any questions about this new interaction model and what's staying the same and what's changing in the near future. Any questions or comments? Yes, ma'am.
Sorry. After being here for as long as I've been here, as being a longtime employee, in the past, our performance evaluations haven't meant anything. They haven't meant a raise. And again, there's, when you say high performers, it's the high performers in your boss's eyes. You can be a high performer in your job and never be recognized for it and never be given a raise, whereas someone else in the department that they connect with better can be always a high performer and always gets the raises.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I do think that this new model will help to remove some of the subjectivity from that process because you have that business partner right there at the manager's side to provide that feedback and coach them through the process. You also have the communities of expertise kind of looking in to ensure that we're following our processes and our policies. So I don't think that you'll find that to be the case in the future state. We're also looking at the performance management process itself, ensuring that it's streamlined, it's a lot more simplified than it has been in past years, and that it's a meaningful experience for both the employee and for the manager delivering that feedback.
And if it's not in your department, what should you do?
You should provide that feedback up through your leadership chain of command. And to add to that, I'll just mention that it is going to be an iterative process. Given the amount of change that we're experiencing here, we're not going to have the perfect solution day one. So you might see that evolve over time and continue to improve as we get better with our technology and we add the right talent in the right places.
So I just want to add a couple of things. That's exactly, you just captured the issue with the classified and the university staff, okay? So no matter what your manager rates you, he or she could not give you an increase in this past round because of the difference. And so those are some of the differences that we've got to work to minimize to be an entire university community. So, I mean, I think you captured one of the issues. The other thing I'd like to encourage you is do use the website, and maybe we can get, as we send out materials, we'll be sure to put the website link on that email. But these are the kinds of things, even if you email in and say, you know, I'm in this position and I'm worried about this, or I'm a long-term employee and I'm worried about that. All of that kind of concern feeds into the team, so we know what to address in communications, what to think about when we're talking about projects. So I just encourage you to send your responses in.
Sounds good. The last thing I'll ask is, I've heard that either HR is gonna, either the departments are gonna start doing the HR functions, or you're gonna end up paying HR to do the functions.
I don't think we have the answer to that yet. It's going to be situation dependent. So as we look through the specifics and have conversations with the appropriate people, more information will be forthcoming on that question. Okay, we're going to skip our third scenario for the sake of time, and I'm going to hand the mic back over to Kelly. It's next slide. It's coming. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to briefly go over next steps because I really think the important part is the interaction that you're going to have, you know, in the next section of this meeting. So there is going to be a You First survey that'll go out this afternoon. I'd encourage you to participate in that. Again, it's another opportunity for you to have input to what's happening. You could be contacted to contribute as a subject matter resource, okay? The team doesn't pretend to know everything that goes on in your units, schools, departments, however you reference them. And so we're going to need to be reaching out. In addition, the HR resource, the leadership resource in your area may be reaching out to you to help validate information because we've asked them to put some information together. The December 8th HR Community, is it Circle? Circle, thanks. I don't know how the acronyms yet. So we are going to continue to talk. So, you know, there's times when it's great to sit at your desk, and if that's all you can do and tune into this, you know, on the web stream, that's great. But I would tell you there's going to be some really critical information coming out over the next 2 or 3 months. If you're able to attend in person, it just helps, you know. It helps to hear the information face-to-face, to talk to your colleagues, to be able to ask questions afterwards. So You First, next steps, finalize and validate the talent selection. So as I mentioned, we're still building out some of the teams, and so we'll finalize that and then implement and stand up some of the service delivery components. So some of the HR impact and decision support, so that kind of behind the curtain analytics type stuff that I talked about, we'll be working on that. We'll further define the communities of expertise and begin to talk about how do we start to stand that up. The HR Solution Center, which again is going to be critical to the transition from now to, you know, when we're fully implemented with the software. So Solution Center will be critical to that. And then, of course, building out the HR business partners. There are discussions around, you know, who's going to fund those, to somebody's question, what the reporting relationships are, I mean, there's just lots of discussions still going on, lots of decisions to be made. So we'll be working on that.
Okay, so I know you guys are chomping at the bit to get some of your questions out, so I'll be very brief here, just to let you know how the logistics of the information fair are going to work. So for the next hour, you'll see outside in the hallway here, there's some booths set up. We're going to ask that you take your passport as you travel from one booth to the next because there's a raffle associated with it. If you can visit 5 of the 6 booths and get a sticker to prove that you did, you'll be eligible to enter into the raffle. So we ask that you go around, ask all the questions that you can, but make sure you get your raffle tickets in by 11:55. So here's just a layout of how the booths are structured. You can see we have 6, as I mentioned, 1 for talent, 1 for HR service, business partner, HR impact and decision support, and then lastly, the booth specific to the Workday technology. Yes, so the passport, the one that you took notes on earlier, that's where you're collecting your stickers and turning in for the raffle. So make sure you have that with you. All right, without further ado, we'll go ahead and turn it over to the information fair. Thank you for your time and attention today.